Okay. Um, I don't do Timberwolves videos very often because why would I? But um, I've never put this to video before, so I feel like I should do it. Seems like a good time because this has got to be as close to just the absolute lowest point in the history of the franchise as it gets. Um, Last night they got the shit kicked out of them again. Charlotte beat them by like 30 points. They're 7-29. They have the worst record in the NBA again. Um, they fired Ryan Saunders, but they're not. They haven't won a game under Finch yet. Um, you know, Players are yelling about this isn't acceptable. They're ripping they're ripping their teammates. They're ripping just whether it's Rubio or Towns now. I saw had some quotes where he's just fed up. It's only a matter of time until he demands a trade. But like I don't know how the fan base and what fan base that they have left, and they don't have much. I don't know how they do it because they have to understand, and everyone should understand that the Minnesota Timberwolves have absolutely no chance to ever win a championship. If that's the goal, if that, you know, I think some teams, some franchises, maybe the goal isn't necessarily to win a championship. It's just to, be relevant and be a contender and, have have good seasons here and there. But, you don't win a title, who cares? But I mean, like the most the Timberwolves as a franchise could ever aspire to is to just be kind of a, you know, a contender in name only. Like, I mean, just in their history, I mean, they've had one season where they were a championship contender. One season in 32 seasons, I think. Um, but like what they did in 2003-04, that will never happen again. They'll never even be able to get to that. And I could do a whole separate thing just ranting about the NBA and how what a garbage product it is, really, and a garbage league. But we live in the era of now the super team, and those super teams don't exist in a market like Minnesota. They just don't, and they never will. Um, if you want to believe that the Timberwolves can truly aspire to win a title someday, like ever, not just with like some of the current players or current ownership or anything, what is your model for that? There are no models for a franchise like this winning a title in the NBA as it is now. Because, it's the era of the super team. It's the era, I mean, more or less, it's always been the era of big markets dominating. But that's not going to stop. That's not going to go away. Like, you're never going to be able to, pull off something like what the Lakers did. LeBron James just decides to go to LA, and then, oh well, let's poach Anthony Davis from another smaller market team where he can't win a title. We'll get him. Or obviously LeBron himself has done it a couple times now. But I mean, what would be the model for the Timberwolves as a franchise, or just Minnesota as a market to win a title in the NBA as it is now? There isn't a model that has any precedent for sure. I don't know what what would be the path, because and this is not to let the Timberwolves off the hook. Like they've done everything for the majority of 32 years wrong. Draft picks have been wrong. Trades have been wrong. Coaching hires have been wrong. Everything has been wrong. except for like a couple things like drafting Garnett and maybe a couple other moves. And even when something seems right, it actually proves to be wrong. You know, like the Wiggins trade now for D'Angelo Russell is a fucking flop because D'Angelo Russell just isn't that good. And he's never going to be. He's never going to be a difference maker. He was touted as one, and he's just not. And he never will be. And he's not the first or the last guy to be hyped up as the missing piece that's going to finally put the Timberwolves into contention. You know, now they can contend for being a playoff team. I mean, there's no excuse for, you know, the Timberwolves being this bad at just making the damn playoffs. I mean, they've made the playoffs once since 04, and it took a win in the very last game of the regular season to do it. You know, that there's no excuse for that at all. I mean, the sport is designed so that most of the league makes the playoffs, and you've done it once in what 18 years or something like that. And they're certainly not going to make it this year. So, you know, I consider that kind of a separate thing. Like there's no disputing that the Timberwolves are just legendarily incompetent. I mean, I think they now have the worst cumulative record in any of the four major sports. And they've earned it because they've been a horrible franchise for the majority of their time here. And even when they had Garnett, one year, they had a chance. And the rest of the time, they were just what most of the smaller market franchises are in the NBA, is just fodder for the real contenders to beat up on in the playoffs. And as bad as that setup was in the late 90s, early 2000s, it's way worse now. You know, in any given year, you've got maybe five, six teams max who can win a title in the NBA. But you have 16 playoff teams, and now they're doing this ridiculous thing again where they're going to have this play-in tournament for the last couple seeds or whatever. Like, who gives a fuck who gets an 8 seed? Like, once a decade, an 8 seed might do something, but then they get the shit kicked out of them in the next round. It's like the NCAA tournament. Hey, you might have a real low seed pull off an upset. Well, then they're going to get the shit kicked out of them in the next game. But at least there's interest there because it's a single elimination. Like, there's nothing in sport in the major sports. There's nothing less interesting than the early rounds of the NBA playoffs, because like, why do we need a best of 7 if when it's just a massacre? But as far as the Timberwolves go, like, the best they can aspire to as a franchise in what the NBA is currently is to just be one of these fodder teams. Let's get an 8 seed and then get swept in the first round. Or let's maybe get a 4 seed or something, and then maybe we can even win a playoff series. But then you're still going to run into the real teams who are going to beat the shit out of you, because that's how it is every fucking year in the NBA. And the Timberwolves are far from the only franchise in this predicament. They just got blown up by Charlotte. Just bring them up as an example. Who the fuck actually believes the Charlotte Hornets are ever going to win an NBA title? They're never going to win an NBA title. They have no chance. The New Orleans Pelicans have no chance to ever win a title. I know they're having a good season this year, but the Utah Jazz are never going to win a title. And don't give me Stockton Malone, because that was a whole other era of NBA. That was 25 years ago. The Denver Nuggets are never going to win an NBA title. I go down the list. There's maybe half the league that just has no chance. But they're not obviously as pathetic as the Timberwolves. The Timberwolves are on a whole other level of putridity, if that's even a word. I'm going to coin it. But they cannot ever win a title in Minnesota. this franchise will never win a title. The best they can ever aspire to, unless something drastic changes in how the NBA conducts itself, the best they can ever be is just, maybe have a decent season and maybe even win a playoff series, but you're just a fodder team. Because you have to have, 16 teams. So someone's got to be a 4 seed or a 5 seed. They don't have enough major markets to fill out the upper seeds every year. That's basically the best you can hope for. But there's no model in 2021 and going forward for the Timberwolves to win a title, because who do you base it on? You're going to base it on the Spurs? I mean, again, that was, much of their success has been kind of pre-super team era, and some of it, they did win at least one title after super team era began, but, the Spurs hit the all-time lottery luck, all-time, hey, let's have one bad year and luck into, one of the all-time great players. Oh, and you also have maybe the best coach, or one of the 2 or 3 best coaches in the history of the NBA. And then also key is, Duncan stayed in San Antonio, and most of these star players, they can't wait to get the fuck out of any middle market type of team. Now, of course, the Spurs won a title right away, so that helped. But like as soon as any star player goes to like, New Orleans or wherever, like the second they don't aren't competing for a title within like 2-3 years, they're talking about getting out of there. So it's like, you can't replicate what the Spurs do. It's like football fans wanting to replicate what the Patriots did. You just can't. You can't do it. So you could say, well, hey, Cleveland won a title. That's a small market. Okay, well, all we need is the best player in the NBA in the last 20 years to be from your town. So I don't know. Maybe the greatest player in the next generation of the NBA will be from Edina, and then they'll come win a title here. Because you think LeBron James ever goes back to Cleveland if he's not from Ohio? Hell no, he doesn't. And even he did the hey, I'm leaving for a bigger market. And even when he came back, well, he had to come back. He didn't come back until he could assemble a bit of a super team. So, like, that's not, you can't replicate that. Only other option is Toronto. Toronto kind of went big, made the Kawhi Leonard trade. 1 year they had a shot to win, and they won it. It's like, they threaded the needle. And of course, even they needed to have Golden State get just destroyed by injuries in order to win it. But we'll count that. You sell out for you make the big trade. You sell out for 1 year. They knew that was the 1 year they had a chance to win a title, because they were one of these teams that was just kind of stuck in stuck just being a fodder team for the bigger markets, for the bigger stars. They went for it 1 year. Like, if you can thread that needle like that, but I mean, those are basically your 3 examples of, if you wanted to have some sort of formula for how you could win a title in Minnesota. At least an example that's already occurred. Those are your 3 options. Get all-time luck in the lottery and have one of the great coaches. Have the greatest player in the league be from your hometown, essentially. Or thread the needle, go all out to win for 1 year and do it. Those are pretty fucking unlikely events to happen. And I suppose, the people who hold out hope can just say, well, it did happen, so why couldn't it happen here? Well, they're saying that in some other markets too. But at least some of those other markets can occasionally make the playoffs and at least be the fodder team. We can't even be the fodder team, and it's just never going to change. Coaching changes don't mean anything. Personnel moves don't mean anything. You finally got the number 1 draft pick, and you get Karl-Anthony Towns, and he's a good player, but he's not a guy who can carry you. And you were able to trade for Andrew Wiggins, and he couldn't carry you. He's just a guy that they never get the kind of transformative player other than Garnett, and even Garnett only was able to get out of the first round of the playoffs once. And it wouldn't have been any better if he was drafted in this era, because you don't have a chance. The only team that maybe could disprove this at this point, maybe Milwaukee. But they haven't done it yet. Milwaukee's kind of they've been able to keep their star to this point, but they haven't won a title. They haven't made it to finals. Like most people thought that last year was going to be their year. They didn't do it. Will they ever do it? I mean, I guess they're going to still have some cracks at it. Maybe they can be one of the only teams that can kind of break through with any sort of model that Minnesota could match. Get a great player. And I know we could have drafted Giannis, but that would be about the only model, but it hasn't worked yet like that, and it's just never going to. And I don't know why people stick with it. Maybe they just like basketball. I mean, I know, like some people just don't care about titles and about actually contending. They just like to watch basketball. But me, I mean, I've long since given up on them as a franchise. I've said it before, and I will now say it in a video form. I think we'd all be better off as Minnesota sports fans if the Timberwolves moved. Just relocate. Leave us the Lynx. We'll keep them if we can. But just move. Just leave. Because the Timberwolves bring no joy. They're just annoying. It's just annoying to even look at their scores. Just like, oh God, you just got beat. You're 7-29. You got beat by 30 points by the Charlotte Hornets. Why are we dealing with you? Why are we even putting up with this shit? Like, there's nothing. There's no payoff that's ever going to come. It's just annoying watching you flounder year after year after year. Even as a non-fan, just as an observer of Minnesota sports, you're just annoying. You're just like this little gnat that's just buzzing around. You're always bad. You're always irritating, and you're never gonna pay it off with any sort of real payoff. Like, there's never gonna be a title. There's just never going to be a title. But you don't give. You're so bad. You can't even provide like an illusion for people anymore. Like I was seeing a report today about, maybe a couple guys that might be looking for trade targets. Who gives a fuck? Who gives a fuck who they trade for? It's never going to lead to anything. Just leave us alone. Just go. I know Glenn Taylor might be selling the team soon. Just sell it to someone out of market and let them take the team. We'll keep the Lynx, hopefully. It's the only goddamn good thing that there's only really two good things that have ever come out of the Timberwolves not moving to New Orleans way back in the 90s, and that's Kevin Garnett and the Lynx, because we wouldn't have had the Lynx if not for them staying. But I mean, fuck, we could still have a team here if it's not affiliated with the Timberwolves. So, like, just go to Seattle. Be their problem. Go somewhere else. I don't know what other markets are talked about for, NBA expansion, but like, Seattle's getting their hockey team back. Give them a basketball team too, because it's just pointless. It's pointless to even have this franchise because it will never pay off with a title, and we just have all they can ever aspire to be is just playoff fodder, and that's a horrible existence in sports. Because at least other teams, I know we're starved in this town for titles. At least the, you can see a path for the Vikings. You could see a path for the Twins. You could see a path for the Wild. You can't see a path for the Timberwolves. There is no path. There's never a path. There never will be a path, unless something very, very drastic changes in how the NBA is conducted. So, just go. We let you go. We wish you luck. We'll figure out what we're gonna put in Target Center. Nobody goes to the fucking games anyway, so who gives a shit? Even pre-COVID, they've been rock bottom in attendance for years. Nobody cares. I guarantee no one's gonna care. There's maybe a couple people somewhere who will care if the Timberwolves move. I'm not one of them. Just please leave. Go. Get the hell out of here. Who needs you? Beat it. Leave me alone.